So who'd like to start? All right, I will.
Like always.
I'll start with my longest question. It's a two-part question, but I'll try to make it quick. Number one, how has the global market, moving from just small trade to just global trade, how has the global market affected Taiwan's trade with the United States?
I'm not an expert in economics, but I can say that for example, Taiwan and US had some difficulties, I think over beef or some issues like that, but still these small issues cannot outshadow common interests that Taiwan and US has, and this in present terms we can say about this globalization of economics, and these connections are really strong. So I think that the common interests between Taiwan and US, and among Taiwan and mainland China and US, are really strong. So I think that some obstacles they can be overcome on mutual benefit.
Okay.
I don't know if I said it.
No, that's okay, because my part two gets more specific. When I was young, I had some toys that were made in Taiwan, and they were really well made. They were quality toys. Also, my friend's father, this was in the 80s, my friend's father also in the 1980s sold clothes in Taiwan, made in Taiwan. They were also well made. Did China's inclusion into the global market affect how products were made in Taiwan? Do you know what I mean?
I believe that there are some consequences, because China export is rising rapidly, and they are exporting everything from clothes to toys. But I think that the main strength of Taiwan lies in innovations and in high technology and education. So I think Taiwan had some difficulties in economy, I think 2 or 3 years ago, but now still Taiwan managed to overcome that, and still the unemployment rate in Taiwan is 4.2%, which is really respectable. Especially now during this big crisis in Europe or United States. So I think that Taiwan has more things to offer to international market than clothes or toys or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah. Okay, Felix first. Me first. Okay. So you mentioned that China is compensating their failure of establishing the communism by focusing on their nationalistic idealism. Is that correct? You said
realistic.
China is compensating. You said China is compensating the failure to establish communism, right, by focusing on their nationalistic idealisms.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So I'm wondering, does the government in China officially acknowledge that communism has failed? And if so, or do they have an agenda of how to move on with the economy and the economical?
Well, they didn't say directly communism is over, but.
Okay.
In Deng Xiaoping years, when they introduced this capitalism with socialist idea, that means they abandoned this strict communist ideology, because communist ideology is focused on control every segment of society. It means in politics and economy. But as you probably know, that economy now in China is like in the independent companies. They have lots of rich people. And during the communist era, because communists want to everybody they believe in equality of society. Now in China, this gap between the rich and the poor is getting bigger all the time. And without a capitalist economy, China will not be couldn't sustain this economic growth, because you have to have some kind of free market, and free market is totally opposite to the communism. So that's why we can say that China accepted some values that capitalist democracies cherish.
Okay, other questions?
Okay, there was, 2016 there will be the presidential elections in Taiwan, and the last two presidential elections, KMT, Kuomintang won, and the predictions are that the next elections Kuomintang will win again, but that's not the worst thing. The worst thing is that when I talk to Taiwanese, they say that if Kuomintang comes again on power in 2016, that means that Taiwan becomes part of China. Okay, so it's already one step towards being part of China. What is your view on this? How is the...
sorry, just repeat the last two sentences, please. You said that Kuomintang, the predictions are that Kuomintang will be in power in 2016.
Yes. Which is the third run in a row.
Yeah.
And some people in Taiwan, they say that if that happens, Taiwan will practically become part of China. Like this will be the first step for China going into China, for Taiwan becoming part of China.
Well, I don't think so, because when I during my stay here in Taiwan, I speak with one of the scholars from who is expert in international relations and also to cross-strait relations. Well, she told me like that. General opinion is like that: if China, but mainland China, accepts the standard of liberal democracy, in that case, Taiwan could become a part of China, because you have free elections, you have a multi-party system, and anyone who could enjoy all the liberties, like peoples in Europe or like the United States has. So the main obstacle for that is that still communist political course that regime Beijing cherishes. So in that case, because unlike of the DPP, Kuomintang is committed to the one China politics. Yes, but this main obstacle is China's continuing communist leadership, which doesn't respect human rights, doesn't respect liberal democracy or multi-party system. And according to this, under these conditions, I think that Taiwan will never accept to be a part of China.
May I qualify? So actually, I want to add up something. It's not about Taiwan accepting. I think, like, people say that it's going to be imposed to Taiwan. Like the government, the new government led by Kuomintang will do that in a way, like forcefully. It will force Taiwan to become a part of China. Do you think that's possible?
Sorry, you think that Kuomintang will force Taiwan?
I don't think. Some people say that in Taiwan. Some people in Taiwan say that.
That would be contrary to the opinion of majority of Taiwanese people.
I know. So that's why I'm asking, what do you think about that?
But I don't think that Kuomintang will go against their voters because they will lose. You mean that they will try to secretly do that? Like, we won elections on one platform and now we'll change the platform and become part of China.
Okay, yeah. I see you cannot accept that this is possible, right?
No, maybe this is possible, but no.
Yeah, it has to be some kind of trick, yeah.
Like a trick?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's some kind of this theory, conspiracy theory exists.
Come back.
Okay.
General public don't know about it.
Okay, other questions?
Thank you for the answer.
Sorry?
Thank you for the answer.
Other questions?
I have another question. Okay, is the USA supporting either the DPP or the Kuomintang, and are they doing that?
Sorry, sorry, repeat.
Is the USA supporting either the DPP or the Kuomintang, the two parties in Taiwan? And if so, are they doing it openly or
to this status quo policy? So when DPP started talking about independence, the US responded to that by saying, hey, this is contrary to our interest, but this is contrary to your interest, this is contrary to the peace in Asia, so they didn't support this idea. So in that case, we can say that the US is like maybe more, they want Kuomintang to be in power. They will not expressly, they will not express that publicly, like we are supporting Kuomintang on these elections, or we are against DPP on these elections. They are supporting this party who will stay committed to this status quo policy.
Okay, more questions? Okay, I've got another question. Oh, let's see. Let's go in this direction. It's my understanding that China is doing, the People's Republic of China is doing a great job of pissing off its neighbors, including India, Cambodia, Vietnam, etc. India because of disputed border, and others because of shared water resources. I mean, have you studied that at all? During your speech, you talked about how China is worried about a new pro-U.S. bloc being created on its borders. If China is so worried about that, I would imagine that they would be doing more to not piss off their neighbors so much.
Well, the point that this strategic alliance exists. ASEAN is one of them, and the United States have some kind of military cooperation with all these countries, from Japan to the Philippines and Singapore and other. The disputes could be a big issue, but recently I read one really good book in which one author argues that all countries in the region are not so much afraid of China because they want to strengthen the cooperation with China. So they are become more and more cooperative with this rising power. On the other hand, China showing its muscles in the region, but I think maybe this is more directed. But this is like an issue of nationalism. Because they also want to preserve, the regime, Beijing wants to preserve their power due to some problems within the country. So they are trying to inflame these nationalist feelings, and that's why, including, they are involved in these disputes. Also, like you said, there is the issue of natural resources, of waterways, of fishing, because these areas are rich with fish and natural resources. So of course China has economic interest in this. But China always emphasized that its policy is not based on hegemony. And the last 20 years, China always repeating this claim. But as I said, every power that rises, their appetites rising with it, you know. So that could be. Well, there is some potential to be dangerous, but I don't think so that China will be involved in any serious dispute with Japan or with India or Vietnam. Although China fought a war with India long time ago, they fought a war with Vietnam also. But still, this is a legacy of past times. And I think now China hopes that any conflict in the region could be destabilizing for all the region, and that will not benefit to China. On contrary, it will be opposite to its interests, because China will not be able to sell products in the region. Whole world will be against China, will impose some sanctions, like during the Tiananmen massacre in 1989. So I think it's not in China's interest to bully other states.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Yes, I do have. I'm just curious about, in your point of view, about the next step of the man in China, what they're going to do to Taiwan and to USA, even to the world.
What's next for China? What will China do next, right?
Yeah. So
What will China do next to Taiwan and to the rest of the world?
yeah.
Well, I think China will continue its rise, will continue to expand its economy, will continue to expand its army. Some consider that to be dangerous, but still, U.S. military budget is, I don't know, 6 times bigger than China is. So I think China will try to position itself in the world as a respectable power. But I don't think so that China, well, for the time being, that China will not express, will not try to express its ambition to become a true global power, because U.S. is still, like an uncontested global power in the world. But China will, for sure, try to strengthen the interest in the region. But it's not like it will try to avoid any serious tensions in the region. And I think that's the best for China and for the United States and for the whole world.
Thank you.
I think that there is no fear of China will consume the world, become a superpower that will bully all the world. I think this is not in China's position.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Who are China's important allies? And I've always wondered why are Russia and China not allies?
Okay, the biggest ally of China is North Korea for now in the region. The point is that North Korea is some kind of buffer zone for China. Okay, so because China fears that if Korean Peninsula become a unified country, that mean that United States will put their soldiers on the direct border with China. China doesn't want that. On the other hand, why Russia and China are not allies in the sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, China you say Russia. Why China and Russia?
Yes.
They had during the Soviet period they had a big dispute on their northern border, and they had some ideological differences because China accused Soviet Union that it betrayed Marxist Leninism and other things. So that in the 60s that happened that the big Sino-Soviet split, and because China was also fearful of China, of Russia, because they thought that Russia could invade China as Russia did in Czechoslovakia, and because when U.S. President Brezhnev proclaimed its doctrine, it meant that Russia will preserve, or U.S. Soviet Union will preserve their interests. Beijing was in fear that Russia would invade China and make it its own satellite. And that's why regime in Beijing under Mao Zedong then accepted U.S. as its ally against Soviet Union. So after a couple of decades, when Soviet Union disintegrated and Russia became independent country, they have some cooperation, of course, but I think that fear of Russia and competing interests between these two big powers are preventing the more closer cooperation with that, because China also said that it is against any hegemony and any alliance among big powers. It wants to pursue its own independent foreign policy of peace. So the China invasion of Soviet Union doesn't have to play between U.S. and Russia, and so it can pursue its own policy, and it became strong economically and politically and military. So it thinks that it can sustain its security and its interests without any strong alliance with them.
Okay, we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Would anyone else like to ask a question who hasn't asked a question? No? Okay. Along the same lines, can Taiwan even afford to continue to build its military in imagined defense against China?
You mean by that you mean?
Well, Taiwan is always asking. Taiwan's always asking to buy weapons, but it seems like a joke to me because China outspends Taiwan militarily by 50 times or something like that.
Well, the main strategy of Taiwan is to try to resist in the first strike, and it hopes that U.S. then in like a day or two, U.S. will come in the region to protect Taiwan. So it has to build its national defense by trying to buy aircraft, trying to strengthen its naval forces, and we also try to have some this new strategy that it will try to deny China access to Taiwan waters and with small boats. So it's also buying buying missiles to hit China, because I think one of the experts said, okay, maybe you can fire 100 missiles on Taiwan, but we can still fire 50 missiles on Shanghai. So do you want to afford that? So I think that, but it's the point that Taiwan is not investing heavily in its military. I think some U.S. analysts say that Taiwan has to increase its spending in its military, but I think that only 2% of GDP Taiwan invests in its military. But because they have this a treaty between United States that U.S. well, they think that U.S. will come to protect them. So that's why they investing so money just to be sure that they can maintain their de facto independence, that they can protect their territory from the first strike, and then that U.S. will come to support them, to help them, like during the Taiwan Strait crisis.
Okay, so why don't you give us your last thoughts, and we're gonna have to go.
Well, according to my humble opinion, I think that peace will remain. The region will remain peaceful in foreseeable time, because I think the interests of Taiwan and China and United States are so big that they will not try to provoke. Any side will try to provoke other side to go into war, because or to in some serious conflict, because that will not be in benefit of any side. And I think that China and Taiwan and the United States will remain dedicated to this de facto, sovereignty of Taiwan, and the Taiwan will enjoy its peace.
Okay, thank you, Dario.